The Magna Carta is not a unilateral act emanating solely from the spontaneous will of the king, as the charters of predecessors of John. Neither is it a treaty, for we cannot say it was concluded between two legitimate and independent sovereignties, nor between two nations, nor is it a law. The barons do not appear in it as subjects, for they are freed from their promise of fidelity, and the king, brought captive, placed before them, submitted to the conditions which the conquerors imposed upon him. Magna Carta is therefore a contract, but resembles a treaty concluded between two nations, in that one of the parties, in virtue of the law of the war, can impose its will upon the other. Now you think about that. What they did essentially is they stuck a sword to his throat, and they said, "Here, king, we want you to sign this." That's exactly what they did. And that's when they were sovereign. And actually, I can show that this has been going on for thousands of years. And I've heard of Israeli court cases that talk about it going back to the Babylonian Empire. Okay, so this is about the queen, okay? And the president, you can call it the president. The queen has the oath of office. We, the people, owe no allegiance to the queen. The queen owes allegiance to the people. And that's what when I was in Canada, I was sending her stuff and I was telling her, I don't owe you allegiance. You owe me allegiance. Sure, she liked that. Now, there's two classes of citizenship, and we're going to talk about that, okay? And the same thing is in Canada as in the U.S. The cases are U.S. cases, but it's all over the place. The charter, there's a 1982 charter in Canada called, and it refers to citizens of Canada, okay? Well, in the U.S., we all know about U.S. citizens. The courts have told us the laws of Canada are federal laws, citizens of Canada are federal citizens. Canadians include state and provincial citizens, or federal citizens and provincial state citizens. A bunch of stuff out of their charter. It talks every citizen of Canada a whole bunch of times in their so-called Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Now, this is some court cases. There is in our political system a government of each of the several states and a government of the United States. Each is distinct from the other and has citizens of its own. One may be a citizen of a state and yet not a citizen of the United States. There is a clear distinction between national citizenship and state citizenship. Instead, this provision protects only those rights peculiar to being a citizen of the federal government. It does not protect those rights which relate to state citizenship. Citizenship of the United States does not entitle citizens to the privileges and immunities of citizens of the state, since the privileges of one are not the same as the other. Remember, a U.S. citizen of 14th Amendment, okay, talks about 14th, and we'll go into that. The privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States do not necessarily include all the rights protected by the first 8 amendments to the federal Constitution against the powers of the federal government. Okay, so U.S. citizens don't have access to the first 8 amendments against the powers of the federal government. That's what they're saying. I don't know if you want to be a U.S. citizen, but I tell them in no uncertain terms, I'm not one of your low-life scumbag U.S. citizens. The only absolute and unqualified right of a U.S. citizen is to residence within the territorial boundaries of the United States. So the U.S. citizen's a slave. Same thing with a citizen of Canada, okay? But you can be a citizen of Alberta or a citizen of Texas. There's at least 2 major classes of citizens, and I've seen charts that had all sorts of them, actually. But so you can be a national, and I just tell them I'm a national, because nationality is common law. American national, or a Canadian national. I have dual, actually. Citizenship is part of a political community. This is taken from the U.S. passport application. They know all about it. You go to the U.S. passport application, it talks about a non-citizen national. Okay? You don't have to be a U.S. citizen to have a U.S. passport. Yes?
Glenn, I was looking at an IRS publication on Thursday, and it differentiated between a U.S. citizen and a U.S. national.
Yeah, no joke. There is major differences. Is he going on the web? Is he getting on the webinar?
No, he's not.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, and here's another shot. The comment was, for those on the webinar, about even the IRS publications talk about non-citizen nationals. Anyways, this is another page out of the passport application form. It talks about non-citizen nationals in several places throughout there. When I apply, for a passport, number one, never, ever, ever give a Social Security number, okay? A passport, I find, a passport kind of straddles it. And so I don't have a problem getting a passport. I'm in a little battle with them right now. I just filed a criminal complaint against Janet Napolitano and one of the directors of the border crossing and some other people, and so we'll see how all that goes. But a passport actually, in my opinion, straddles it because the passport service was created in, I think it's 1878 or something like that, by Benjamin Franklin. And matter of fact, one of the passports I had talked about it. And so if especially, and it talks about it, non-citizen nationals, okay? If you're not a citizen, and it talks about it right in the front of the passport. It says, the U.S. Secretary of State hereby requests all to whom it may concern to give all lawful aid and assistance to the citizen/national named herein. You can be a citizen or a national. Okay, nationality is common law. It is, however, true in all common law countries and has always and consistently been held that the wife and minor children take the nationality of the husband and father. That is common law doctrine. Okay? Nationality is common law. See, they have to, everything they do, they have to acknowledge common law. It's everything they do. Even law merchant itself is based on common law. And so it's easy just to walk away from that stuff and stick to common law. But you have to assert it. You have to assert it, and you have to let them know in no uncertain terms that that's the only game you're playing. And if you do it properly, you know, they don't want to talk to you. And I can't tell you how many times that's happened. So why do we, the people, set up governments in the first place? Well, one of the reasons is protection against foreign enemies, protection from each other, to administer disputes. You know, foreign enemies is national defense, right? Protection from each other. So if I kill somebody, they're going to hunt me down, and they should. Disputes, if I cause injury to somebody's, if I get in a car accident, right? Well, then they got to administer it and decide who's at fault, and then, you know, I have to either pay for their damages or they got to pay for mine or whatever. And so that's their job. That's the only reason that governments exist. The only legitimate function for government is to protect the rights of the people. That's it. Nothing else. And this is a little chart I made. So you have the hierarchy, okay? God is the supreme being, King of Kings, created we the people. We the people, sovereigns, created the government. Government, subordinate to we the people, created corporations and body politics. And then the corporations are subjects to the government. And so what's happened is we've gotten ourselves into that lower tier. But we've done it by what they view. We're supposed to know the law. I mean, everybody's supposed to know the law. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. You've gotten yourself into what they view to be contracts. All you got to do is say, and I can't tell you how many times this is that. Is there a contract here? All of a sudden, you're just watching die for cover. They don't want to talk about that. I can't tell you how many times that's happened. I've even had, I've seen it in Canada, where a Crown prosecutor would come into court and he would actually say, there is no contract, it's a nullity. Okay? When he said that, he's saying that I'm the king. Because, sorry? I said that the Crown prosecutor said there is no contract, it's a nullity. Okay? And what he's saying when he says that is that he's saying I'm the king. Because it is treason for the government to get me into a contract. Remember, the Supreme Court said that the people are unconditionally sovereign. Okay? If they do anything, that there's some contract with the people that they give up their rights, that's treason. That is the definition of treason. Treason's a breach of trust. If you look it up in any law dictionary, it'll tell you treason's a breach of trust, okay? And the government cannot commit treason. And so therefore, it's a nullity. It doesn't exist. There's no contract. It doesn't exist. You start bringing up some of that stuff, and all of a sudden, they don't want to talk to you anymore, I guarantee you. But again, that's what you have to do. And the more you do it, and the better you get at it, you know, the more you see them dive for cover. Because what you're essentially doing is the government cannot commit treason, but individuals in the government can. Okay? And that's called perjury of oath, treason, sedition. Okay? Now, sedition, you think about it, sedition is making war against the government, right? Well, my government's defined by common law. My government is defined by common law and essentially the Magna Carta, okay? And the Constitution, which brings in the Magna Carta, right? And so therefore, you get these police officers with their military uniforms and their guns. They're making war. That's exactly what they're doing. What do you think that gold fringe flag is in those courts? Okay? That's a war symbol. Okay? That's exactly what that is. And they're making war. And the sooner you understand that, you start bringing this stuff up. You know, that's sedition. That's exactly what sedition is. So, in Canada, they have God in the Constitution, and in the U.S. too. Okay? We the people do hereby ordain and establish, okay? That's something that happens, you know, in the Bible, right? Someone is ordained, okay? I mean, that brings God. So why do you think they put God in the Constitution? It's because if our rights come from God, only God can take them away. And invariably, I don't see it happen here too often, but in Canada, the Communist Party, I meant the New Democratic Party, they go around every once in a while and they say, we need to take God out of the Constitution. Well, of course they do. They want it taken out because actually, if you're one of the people, it doesn't mean a hill of beans because the Queen in Canada still has an oath of office, and the Queen has an oath that says that she protects your right to your religious freedom, basically. And so first of all, she would never allow it to happen. But if it did, it wouldn't mean anything anyways, because again, I can show you court cases that say that there's nothing the government can do to affect the people. There is absolutely nothing they can do to affect you and me. Absolutely nothing.
Oh, they do.
Well, but it's because they think they got you in a contract. That's why. So if they do, then they think they have you in a contract. And you need to defeat that. You need to put them in a position to where they don't want to talk to you anymore.
They got every elementary kids, in school in a contract.
Well, it's all a fraud, okay? And the